The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched half a kilometer into the artificial sky of Station Alpha 1, its crystalline walls refracting starlight in patterns that had awed representatives of 1,000 species. Today, those same walls witnessed something unprecedented: fear in the eyes of the Council's supreme leaders. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the center of the chamber, her simple black uniform a stark contrast to the ornate robes of the alien diplomats surrounding her. She remained perfectly still, hands clasped behind her back, as High Counselor Vexterra of the Aldari Dominion read the charges against humanity. Within mere decades of achieving faster-than-light travel, your species has expanded to 17 star systems. Vexterra's translator conveyed his musical language in flat common speech. You have established mining operations in restricted zones, developed quantum-based technologies without oversight, and refused to submit to standard species classification protocols. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. With respect, High Counselor, humanity was unaware of these restrictions, as no member of the Council saw fit to contact us during our development. A ripple of murmurs swept through the chamber. Counselor Zinra, her crystalline form catching the light, leaned forward. That is precisely our concern, Ambassador Chen. Your species achieved in 50 years what takes most races millennia. It suggests interference. Or perhaps, Sarah countered, it suggests that your assumptions about technological development need revision. Humanity's progress is a result of our own ingenuity and determination. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, each translation layering over the next in a cacophony of diplomatic outrage. High Counselor Vexterra raised all four of his arms for silence. You speak of determination, Ambassador, yet we see aggression. Your military vessels carry weapon yields that violate 3 separate galactic treaties, treaties you claim ignorance of, yet somehow manage to exceed. Sarah's smile faded. Those treaties were designed to maintain the current power structure, High Counselor, a structure we were never invited to participate in. Humanity has armed itself appropriately for a galaxy that has shown itself to be less than welcoming to newcomers. The atmosphere in the chamber grew heavy. Several junior representatives shifted uncomfortably in their anti-gravity seats. They had all heard the rumors of how the Crixan Empire's attempt to pacify a human mining colony had ended with their entire fleet reduced to quantum particles. The Council demands that humanity submit to immediate oversight, Vexterra announced. Your colonies will be inspected, your technology evaluated, and your military capabilities adjusted to acceptable levels. Sarah Chen took 3 precise steps forward, her movement causing several Council guards to raise their weapons. High Counselor, I have been authorized to share something with you, something that may help you understand why such demands are inadvisable. She removed a small device from her pocket. Before anyone could react, it projected a hologram that filled the entire chamber. Stars and planets sprang to life around them. But these weren't the familiar territories of known space. These were the holdings of the Galactic Council, viewed from angles that should have been impossible to achieve. For the past 30 years, Sarah's voice carried clearly through the stunned silence. Human stealth vessels have mapped every significant military installation, resource depot, and strategic choke point in Council space. We have decoded your quantum communications, analyzed your weapon systems, and identified the critical weaknesses in your defensive networks. The hologram shifted, showing the movements of fleets and cargo ships, construction of secret bases, and the transfer of resources that the Council thought completely hidden from outside eyes. Humanity chose not to announce our presence immediately upon achieving FTL capability. Instead, we watched, we learned, we prepared, not out of aggression, but out of prudence. History, our own and others, taught us that new civilizations are often seen as threats to be contained rather than equals to be welcomed. She gestured, and the hologram zoomed in on Station Alpha 1 itself. Real-time scans showed the position of every ship, every weapon, and every potential escape route. Even now, there are 200 human warships maintaining stealth positions throughout Council space. They carry weapons that your sensors cannot detect and utilize principles of physics your scientists have yet to discover. The chamber had grown so quiet that Sarah could hear the soft hum of the station's artificial gravity generators. She looked directly at High Counselor Vexterra, her voice softening. "We don't want war, Counselor. We want recognition, respect. A seat at this table, not as subjects to be controlled, but as equals to be consulted." Counselor Zinra's crystalline form had taken on a pale, almost transparent hue, a sign of extreme distress in her species. You have been watching us all this time. Impossible. Our security was designed to detect known threats. Sarah finished for her. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology, Counselor. It's our ability to think differently, to see patterns others miss, to turn limitations into advantages. High Counselor Vexterra's translator seemed to struggle with his next words, his emotion causing fluctuations in the universal translation field. "You speak of peace while threatening us with annihilation." Sarah shook her head. "No, High Counselor. I'm explaining why threats against humanity would be unwise. We prefer cooperation to conflict, trade to warfare. But we will not submit to oversight from those who fear us simply because we refuse to develop at their preferred pace." The hologram disappeared, plunging the chamber back into its normal lighting. Sarah returned the device to her pocket. "I am authorized to negotiate humanity's entry into the Galactic Council as a full member, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. We bring with us significant technological innovations we're willing to share, medical advances that could benefit all species, and defensive capabilities that could help secure Council space against genuine threats." She paused, letting her words sink in. "The choice is yours, Counselors. Will you embrace humanity as allies or continue to treat us as a threat? Because I assure you, if you choose the latter, you will discover just how justified your fears really are." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for eternity. Finally, High Counselor Vexterra spoke, his translator conveying a tone of resigned respect. Perhaps we should adjourn to discuss the terms of humanity's membership in the Council." Sarah Chen allowed herself another small smile. "A wise decision, High Counselor. Humanity looks forward to a long and productive relationship with the Galactic Council, as equals." As the chamber erupted into excited discussion, Sarah couldn't help but think of all the humans who had worked in secret for decades to reach this moment. The scientists who had cracked quantum stealth technology, the diplomats who had learned to read alien body language, the military strategists who had mapped Council space while remaining undetected. They had all understood a fundamental truth. In a galaxy that feared rapid progress, humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their military might. It was their ability to turn that fear into respect. Supreme Commander Ixel of the Pyrian Hegemony watched the holographic replay for the 100th time. The human ambassador's words echoed through his private chamber aboard the dreadnought Eternal Victory. "You will discover just how justified your fears really are." His facial scales shifted in patterns that expressed deep contempt. The Pyrians had not survived 10,000 years of galactic politics by cowering before upstart species. While the rest of the Council debated terms of acceptance, he had already set his own plans in motion. "Status report," he commanded, his translator converting the complex harmonics of Pyrian speech into common. His second-in-command, War Captain Nexara, materialized in a hologram beside him. "The strike fleet is in position. Supreme Commander. 300 ships, all running silent with our new quantum dampeners. The humans won't know what hit them." Ixel's scales rippled with satisfaction. "Their colonies. We've identified their most valuable mining operations in the Arcturus sector. Far from Earth, minimal defenses. The perfect target to demonstrate the price of their arrogance. Proceed." The attack began at precisely 300 Earth Standard Time. Pyrian warships dropped out of quantum space around 3 human mining colonies, their weapons already charged. The first salvos reduced the defensive installations to atoms. But something was wrong. Supreme Commander, Nexera's voice carried an edge of panic he had never heard before. The colonies, they're empty. Ixal's scales flushed dark with rage. Impossible. Our intelligence confirmed over 10,000 humans working these installations. Sir, the structures are here, the equipment is here, but there are no life signs. No bodies. Nothing. It's as if they knew we were coming. A new voice cut through their command channel. A human voice. The holographic displays throughout the Eternal Victory flickered and changed. Where there had been status reports and tactical readouts, now there was the face of a human male, his dark skin creased with laugh lines around his eyes. Admiral Marcus Chen, Earth Defense Force. The human introduced himself casually. I believe you've met my wife, Sarah, at the council chambers. Ixal's translator struggled to convey his fury. How dare you infiltrate our command channels? Your colonies lie in ruins. Your mining operations are destroyed. The council will see that humans cannot protect their assets. The human's smile widened. Those weren't our mining operations, Commander Ixal. They were bait. Very elaborate, very expensive bait, but worth every credit to prove a point. New holograms sprang to life, showing the space around the Pyrrhian fleet. Quantum distortions began to form, dozens, then hundreds of them. You see, Admiral Chen continued, Sarah wasn't exaggerating about our stealth capabilities, or our understanding of council politics. We knew someone would try exactly what you're doing now. The only question was who would be proud enough, or foolish enough, to make the attempt. The quantum distortions solidified into ships, human ships. They were unlike anything in known space. Their hulls seemed to bend light itself, their forms difficult to focus on even when looking directly at them. Your quantum dampeners are impressive, Chen admitted, based on theoretical work by Dr. Ranix of the Pyrrhian Science Academy, if I'm not mistaken. But they're designed to block quantum signatures, you understand. We took a different approach. Ixal watched in horror as his tactical displays showed the true scope of their situation. The Pyrrhian fleet was completely surrounded. Their fastest escape vectors were already covered by human weapon systems that defied known physics. Commander, Nexera reported, her voice shaking, we're detecting energy signatures orders of magnitude larger than anything in our database. Their weapons, they could destroy the entire fleet with a single volley. Impossible. Ixal roared. No species could advance so quickly. No race could hide such power. That's your fundamental mistake, Chen said softly. You keep thinking in terms of what should be possible. Humanity has a long history of doing the impossible. It's kind of our specialty. Warning alerts began screaming throughout the Eternal Victory as the human ships activated their targeting systems. Ixal felt his scales flatten against his body, an instinctive reaction to mortal danger that his species hadn't evolved past. Now, Chen's voice hardened. Here's what's going to happen. Your fleet will power down all weapons and quantum drives. You will surrender yourselves to Earth Defense Force custody, and you will transmit a full confession of your unauthorized military action to the Galactic Council. And if we refuse, Chen's smile disappeared. Then we demonstrate exactly why the Council's fears were justified. Your choice, Commander. But I should mention, we've already transmitted proof of your attempted attack to every Council species. Your government is currently trying to decide whether to acknowledge you as a rogue element or face sanctions for an act of war against a pending Council member. Ixal's scales had gone completely pale. In 10,000 years of space combat, the Pyrrhians had never surrendered. But they had never faced anything like this. Perhaps, he said carefully, we could discuss terms. A wise choice, Chen replied, and Ixal heard echoes of his wife's diplomatic tone. Though I should mention, Sarah's going to be quite annoyed that you forced us to reveal some of our capabilities ahead of schedule. She had this whole diplomatic rollout planned. As the surrender proceedings began, Ixal couldn't help but wonder, If this was what humans had hidden away in preparation for potential threats, what else were they capable of? The thought sent a shiver through his scales, a sensation he hadn't felt since his first days at the Academy. The message would spread quickly through Council space. Humanity hadn't been bluffing. Their ambassadors' warnings hadn't been diplomatic posturing, and anyone who thought to challenge them would pay dearly for their pride. In his private chambers, Admiral Chen ended the transmission and looked out at the stars. Well, he said to himself, that should make Sarah's next council meeting interesting. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been running for 3 standard days. Representatives from every major species crowded the chamber, their attention fixed on the central display showing footage from the Pyrrhian surrender. The image of human ships materializing from seemingly empty space had become the most viewed recording in Council history. Councillor Zinra's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained energy as she addressed her peers. The implications are staggering. The humans didn't just develop advanced technology, they fundamentally altered our understanding of what's possible. What's disturbing, High Councillor Vexterra added, is how long they maintained this deception. Our best estimates suggest they achieved quantum mastery at least 20 years ago, yet they continued to present themselves as a developing civilization. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood calmly at the center of the storm. Not deception, councillors. Preparation. Consider our position. A young species discovering we weren't alone in the galaxy. We had to assume we'd face resistance, prejudice, perhaps even hostility. The Pyrrhian incident proved our caution was warranted. And yet, a new voice cut in. You chose to reveal these capabilities to save Pyrrhian lives. The speaker was Administrator Leth of the Meridian Collective, his hover chair gliding forward. You could have destroyed their fleet. Instead, you arranged a bloodless surrender. Sarah nodded. Humanity's strength isn't in our weapons, Administrator. It's in our ability to find unexpected solutions. We didn't want to destroy the Pyrrhians. We wanted to change their perspective. The chamber's artificial lighting shifted as the Council's AI processed the diplomatic exchanges, its quantum processors analyzing every nuance of the conversation. Sarah had learned that this subtle environmental response often preceded major revelations. Tell us, Ambassador. Vexterra's translator conveyed genuine curiosity. How did humanity achieve such advances in secret? Our monitoring systems cover every approach to Earth. That's just it, Counselor. You monitored what you expected to see. Sarah gestured, and new holograms filled the chamber. Humanity didn't develop along the traditional paths you watch for. We went sideways. The holograms showed human research facilities, but in places no one had thought to look. Vast complexes deep beneath Earth's oceans, laboratories hidden in dimensional pockets between normal space, research stations disguised as debris fields. While you watched our space program, we explored our oceans and learned to manipulate gravity. While you monitored our energy emissions, we discovered how to harness quantum fluctuations that your sensors weren't designed to detect. We turned our limitations into advantages. Administrator Leth's hover chair hummed as he processed this information. But surely someone must have noticed. The resource expenditure alone would have been astronomical if we'd done it conventionally. Sarah agreed. But again, we found different approaches. Those mining colonies the Pyrrhians attacked, they weren't just bait. They were our first experiments in quantum replication technology. The chamber erupted in overlapping translations as every species tried to speak at once. Quantum replication was theoretical, a technology even the oldest council races considered centuries away from practical application. Impossible, someone shouted. The energy requirements are massive if you try to replicate matter directly, Sarah conceded. But we discovered it's much more efficient to replicate the quantum state of an object and allow normal spacetime to fill in the gaps. The mining colonies were quantum echoes, real enough to fool sensors, but requiring only a fraction of the energy to maintain. High Councillor Vexterra raised all 4 hands for silence. Ambassador Chen, You realize what you're describing violates several fundamental laws of physics as we understand them. Sarah's smile held a touch of sympathy. With respect, counselor, perhaps it's your understanding that needs to expand. Humanity's greatest breakthrough wasn't technological. It was conceptual. We stopped accepting limitations as absolute. She turned slowly, making eye contact with representatives from each major species. When we found a law of physics that seemed to block our progress, we didn't accept it as a barrier. We looked for loopholes, exceptions, and ways to work around it. We asked questions your scientists had stopped asking centuries ago. The chamber's AI manifested a small holographic avatar, a rare occurrence that signified the gravity of the moment. Analysis suggests human technological development followed a non-linear path unprecedented in council records. They achieved quantum mastery not through gradual advancement, but through fundamental paradigm shifts in theoretical understanding. Precisely, Sarah nodded to the AI. We didn't climb the technological ladder one rung at a time. We found our own path up the cliff face. Sometimes that meant reaching heights others thought impossible, simply because we didn't know they were supposed to be impossible. Administrator Leth's hover chair settled closer to the chamber floor, a sign of deep thought in his species. And now, what other impossibilities should we expect from humanity? That depends entirely on the Council, Sarah replied. We've shown you a fraction of our capabilities, enough to demonstrate that we cannot be dismissed or controlled. But we'd prefer to work with you rather than around you. Imagine what humanity's unique perspective could add to the Council's collective knowledge. The chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just developed advanced technology. They demonstrated an entirely new way of thinking about what was possible. The question wasn't just what they had achieved in secret, but what they might achieve openly, with access to the Council's resources and knowledge. Perhaps, High Counselor Vexterra said carefully, it is time to revisit the terms of humanity's membership in the Council, not as a species to be monitored and controlled, but as one whose unique perspectives might benefit us all. Sarah Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The path ahead would be challenging. Trust had to be rebuilt, fears addressed, relationships forged. But humanity had finally achieved what they'd spent decades working toward, the opportunity to join galactic civilization on their own terms, bringing with them new ways of thinking that could transform the galaxy itself. The private chambers of High Counselor Vexterra had hosted countless secret meetings over the centuries, but none quite like this. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat across from him, both of them watching a holographic display of the galaxy's major trade routes. The routes were shifting before their eyes, reorganizing themselves into more efficient patterns based on human quantum tunneling technology. Your proposal is ambitious, Vexterra admitted, his translator struggling to convey the complex mix of admiration and concern in his harmonic speech. Integrating human technology into Council infrastructure would transform galactic civilization itself. That's rather the point, Sarah replied, taking a sip of Aldari tea, a gesture of respect she'd learned was particularly meaningful to Vexterra's species. The galaxy is changing, High Counselor. The question is whether the Council will help guide that change or be overwhelmed by it. The door chimed, admitting Administrator Leth and Counselor Zinre. The inner circle of the Council's reform faction had taken to meeting unofficially, away from the political theater of the main chamber. The Parian delegation is demanding immediate access to human quantum replication technology, Zinre announced without preamble, her crystalline form flickering with agitation. They claim it's their right as founding members of the Council. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. And how did their unauthorized military action against human colonies work out for them? They've been remarkably quiet on that point, Leth observed, his hover chair settling into a neutral position. Though our analysis suggests they're redirecting significant resources toward theoretical physics research. Let them research, Sarah said, leaning forward. Humanity's advantage isn't in the technology itself. It's in how we think about using it. The Pyrians are still trying to understand quantum replication through their traditional scientific framework. They're asking, how does it work? Instead of what else could it do? Vexterra's upper arms made a gesture of scholarly interest. Explain. The holographic display shifted, showing a human research facility deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean. Take this installation, Sarah began. Council scientists would have focused on solving the pressure problems at such depths. We instead asked why pressure behaves the way it does, which led us to discover quantum pressure fields. Now to use those fields not just for deep-sea research, but for spacecraft armor, medical treatments, and even food preservation. One discovery leading to multiple applications in seemingly unrelated fields, Leth mused. Most unusual. Our species tend to specialize, compartmentalize, which is precisely why the Council needs humanity. Sarah pressed her advantage. We don't just bring new technology. We bring new ways of thinking about technology, about everything. Zinra's crystalline surface rippled with patterns that indicated deep thought. The conservative factions will resist. They already fear human advancement. This level of integration would terrify them. They should be more terrified of stagnation. Sarah countered. The galaxy is vast, but it's not infinite. Sooner or later, we'll encounter challenges that can't be solved with traditional approaches. When that happens, wouldn't you rather have humanity's impossible solutions available? The chamber fell silent as each leader considered the implications. The holographic display continued cycling through examples of human innovation, each one representing not just a technological leap, but a fundamental shift in how problems could be approached. There is another factor to consider, Leth said quietly. Our long-range sensors have detected anomalies at the galaxy's edge, energy patterns that don't match any known phenomenon. The conventional wisdom is that they're natural occurrences, but you're wondering if they might be something else, Sarah finished. Something that conventional wisdom isn't equipped to handle. Vexterra's translator hummed as he chose his next words carefully. Ambassador, what you're proposing goes beyond simple technological exchange. You're suggesting we fundamentally restructure how the Council operates, how we think, how we approach the unknown. Yes, Sarah said simply, because that's what humanity does. We adapt. We evolve. We find new ways forward when the old ways prove insufficient. And right now, the old ways are proving very insufficient indeed. She stood, moving to the holographic display. With a gesture, she brought up the anomalies Leth had mentioned. They pulsed at the edge of known space like distant lightning. The galaxy is changing, she repeated. The only question is whether the Council will change with it. Humanity has chosen to share our advances openly, despite the risk. We've chosen to work within the Council system, despite its limitations. Now the Council must choose. Will you embrace new possibilities or cling to comfortable certainties? The alien leaders exchanged looks that transcended species barriers. They had all felt it, the growing sense that the galaxy was entering a new era, one that would require new approaches to age-old challenges. The Council has existed for 10,000 years, Vexterra said slowly. Change does not come easily to such an ancient institution. Then perhaps, Sarah suggested, it's time for some impossible solutions. As if in response to her words, the anomalies in the holographic display pulsed more intensely. Whatever waited at the galaxy's edge, it would not wait forever. The time for choosing between comfort and necessity was rapidly approaching. I will speak to the other High Counselors, Vexterra decided. We will begin the process of integrating human perspectives into Council operations. Carefully, gradually. Sarah's expression remained neutral, but inwardly she felt a surge of satisfaction. The real work was just beginning. The delicate process of transforming a galactic civilization without breaking it. But humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, developing not just the technology they would need, but the patience to use it wisely. The impossible, after all, just took a little longer to achieve. The observation deck of humanity's first official Council space station, New Horizon, offered a view that would have been impossible just a year ago. Ships from 24 species moved in precise patterns through the quantum tunneling lanes, their designs a striking blend of traditional council architecture and human innovations. Below, the massive station itself represented everything humanity had hoped to achieve. Not dominance, but synthesis. Admiral Marcus Chen stood at the window, his wife Sarah beside him, as they watched the latest breakthrough in human council cooperation take shape. A Meridian science vessel was testing a new hybrid drive system, its hull flickering with quantum displacement fields that would have seemed like magic to council scientists just months ago. "They're learning quickly," Marcus observed. "The Meridians have already improved on our original quantum field equations." Sarah nodded, a slight smile playing at her lips. That was rather the point, wasn't it? Give them the basic principles and let their own genius find new applications. The Pyrians may have tried to destroy us, but the Meridians want to understand us. Their quiet moment was interrupted by a priority alert. Administrator Leth's holographic form materialized nearby, his hover chair's systems indicating high agitation. "Ambassador Chen, Admiral, we've confirmed the analysis of the boundary anomalies. They're not natural phenomena. They're quantum wake signatures, unlike anything in council records." Marcus straightened, years of military training taking over. "How many?" "Thousands." Leth's translation carried a tremor. "Whatever they are, they're moving in formation. The conservative council factions are already calling for a defensive mobilization." Sarah's expression remained calm, but her eyes sparked with intensity. "And the reform faction? We're advocating for your approach. Observation, analysis, preparation, but no premature military response. The council chamber is divided." The station's AI manifested its avatar, adding its own analysis. The anomalies exhibit characteristics similar to early human quantum experimentation, but on a scale that suggests significantly advanced development. Probability calculations suggest an encounter within 3 standard months. Marcus and Sarah exchanged a look that contained volumes of unspoken communication. They had known this moment would come, had prepared for it since humanity first looked to the stars, and realized they might not be alone. "Show us," Sarah commanded. The observation deck's windows transformed into a massive display, showing the galaxy's edge. The anomalies were clearer now, ripples in spacetime that seemed to pulse with purpose. They moved like schools of fish, flowing around gravitational disturbances with fluid grace. "Beautiful," Sarah breathed. "They're not just traveling through space, they're dancing with it." Marcus nodded slowly. "No aggressive formation patterns. If they were hostile, they'd be moving differently. This looks more like exploration," Sarah finished. "They're curious, just like we were." Administrator Leth's hover chair shifted uncertainly. "The Council is requesting humanity's official position. As our newest members with the most advanced quantum technology, your insight carries significant weight." Sarah turned to face the administrator's hologram fully. "Tell them we're sending a delegation. Not warships, not defensive fleets. A diplomatic and scientific expedition. The conservative factions will object," Leth warned. "They'll say we're risking everything on an untested assumption." "Then remind them," Marcus said with a hint of steel in his voice, "that humanity's untested assumptions have transformed galactic civilization more in 1 year than the Council managed in a century. Sometimes the greatest risk is refusing to take one." The station's AI projected new data streams, showing the ripple effects of their decision. Council species were already responding to the news, their quantum communications networks blazing with discussion and debate. "Look at that," Sarah pointed to a particular data cluster. "The Pyrians are offering to contribute ships to the expedition. Not warships, research vessels." Marcus smiled. "Nothing like a common mystery to unite former adversaries." "That's always been humanity's real strength," Sarah mused. "Not our technology or our military power, but our ability to inspire others to think differently, to see possibilities instead of threats." The display shifted again, focusing on the nearest anomaly cluster. The quantum wake patterns were becoming clearer as council scientists applied human analytical methods to their studies. What had seemed like chaos was revealing itself as complexity. Layers of information encoded in the very fabric of spacetime. They're talking to us, Sarah realized. The quantum fluctuations, they're not just propulsion effects. They're communication attempts. The station's AI confirmed her observation. Pattern analysis suggests a form of quantum-encoded language. Preliminary decryption attempts shows similarities to mathematical constants found in nature. Universal principles. Marcus nodded. The same basic approach we plan to use if we ever encountered truly alien intelligence. Start with math, build to more complex concepts. Administrator Let's hologram flickered with excitement. I'll inform the council. This changes everything. From a potential threat to a first contact scenario. No, Sarah corrected gently. This changes nothing. This is exactly what humanity has been preparing the council for. We didn't develop our technology just to defend ourselves or to gain power. We developed it to be ready for moments like this, when the galaxy presents us with something new, something that requires us to think beyond our comfortable assumptions. The station hummed with activity as preparation orders went out. Research vessels began powering up their quantum drives. Scientific teams from a dozen species started collaborating on communication protocols. The machinery of galactic civilization was turning to face a new challenge, not with fear, but with curiosity. You know what this means, Marcus said quietly to his wife. Everything we've done. The secrecy, the careful revelation of our capabilities, the diplomatic dance with the council. It was all leading to this. Sarah nodded. We needed the council to be ready, not just technologically, but philosophically. Ready to face the unknown with wonder instead of fear. Ready to learn instead of defend. Ready to grow instead of stagnate. The anomalies pulsed again, their quantum signatures becoming more complex, more deliberate. Whatever waited at the galaxy's edge was reaching out, trying to make contact in the universal language of mathematics and physics. Send the response, Sarah commanded. The station's quantum arrays powered up, transmitting humanity's first message to the unknown visitors, not in words or traditional signals, but in carefully modulated quantum fluctuations that spoke of understanding and welcome. As the message streaked across space, Sarah Chen thought about the long path that had led to this moment. Humanity had entered the galactic stage carefully, strategically, always working toward this possibility. They had hidden their true capabilities not out of fear or aggression, but because they knew that when this moment came, the galaxy would need to be united, ready to face whatever waited in the endless dark between the stars. The Council had feared humanity's rapid advancement, never understanding that it was driven not by aggression or ambition, but by preparation. Preparation for exactly this moment, when the galaxy would need to transform itself to face new wonders, new challenges, new possibilities. The quantum signals pulsed again, stronger now. Whatever waited out there had received their message and was responding. A new chapter in galactic history was about to begin, and thanks to humanity's patient preparation, the galaxy would face it together. Well, Marcus said with a slight smile, I suppose this means the diplomatic work is just beginning. Sarah returned his smile, watching as ships from former adversaries moved in perfect coordination, preparing for humanity's greatest adventure yet. It always is, but that's rather the point, isn't it? There are no endings, only new beginnings. The stars seemed to shine brighter as the galaxy's civilizations united in common purpose, ready to embrace whatever mysteries waited at the edge of known space. Humanity had changed the galaxy not through force or fear, but through inspiration and innovation. Now together, they would discover what waited beyond the boundaries of their knowledge, beyond the limits of their imagination, beyond the edge of everything they thought possible.